In the last 5 years, the rise of Zoom learning, ChatGPT, and online gaming have shifted the educational landscape. Now more than ever, scientific literacy is important for navigating our technology-rich world. Scientific literacy includes written, digital, and numerical literacy as it relates to understanding science methodology, observations, and theories. While understanding science is important, one study found that only 21% of adults could answer 3 basic science questions correctly. And what's more, 70% of 5th through 12th grade students fail to meet the California science test standards. So, how can we help students learn science skills? Studies have shown science achievement and engagement among students correlates with student confidence, motivation, and interest in science. So, perhaps a better question would be, how can we increase student confidence, curiosity, and motivation? Major barriers to learning are situational, institutional, and dispositional. All of these barriers interact with and impact one another. Dispositional barriers include a student's self-belief and motivation. Self-belief is described as a combination of confidence in one's abilities along with how one perceives themselves and assigns worth based on that perception. Students may lack self-belief for numerous reasons. Research has shown socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, and gender can impact students' self-belief to different extents in academic settings. For instance, in one study, researchers found white students had higher confidence, correlating to higher academic achievement, than African American students. Studies also show a large gender gap in confidence between male and female students. The way different social identities interact produce complex experiences for every student, impacting their capacity for academic achievement. This is called intersectionality, a term coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. Additionally, as literacy scientist James Paul G describes, the commitment of learning requires that someone believe they are the type of person who can learn and be accepted in that learning space. So, if students don't see themselves as capable of learning, they won't learn. Like confidence, motivation can be impacted by a student's identity and background. Beyond these factors, a lack of student motivation can be due to the mismatch between student interests and classroom opportunities. With the rise of the gaming industry, educational games have emerged as one potential solution to these dispositional issues. James Paul G describes how games utilize and exemplify principles of learning in his book, What Video Games Have to Teach Us About Learning and Literacy. To increase student confidence, educators can practice normalizing failure, challenging students realistically, and creating situations for peer interaction. As described by G, games can normalize failure via the psychosocial moratorium principle. This is the idea that learners can take risks in a space with lowered real-world consequences. Additionally, students are challenged realistically via the regime of competence principle, which describes how good games are designed such that students are forced to operate within, but at the outer edge of their capabilities. Lastly, games can emphasize peer interaction via G's affinity group principle, in which learners are bonded by their shared goals and thus interact often with one another. To increase student motivation, educators can practice showing applications, providing students with choices, and establishing belonging among students. According to G, good games follow the active learning principle, meaning they force players to be able to understand and produce new meanings in a domain. G also describes games through the situated meanings principle, which is where meanings are never communicated in general, but have distinct relevance to other objects or principles. As for providing students with choices, G describes the multiple routes principle, where, in good games, there is often more than one way to solve in-game problems. Finally, establishing belonging can also be accomplished via the aforementioned affinity group principle. Due to the benefits games present, I will design a collaborative game called Eigenpuzzle that teaches students about physics with the goal of increasing student confidence and motivation.